Welcome back to This Is Now, Parenting Teens Today, the podcast where we're having honest conversations about the parenting challenges that nobody warns you about. Kind of like, how does my kid scroll TikTok for 5 hours and yet forget to text me back? In our last episode, we talked about how social media is impacting our kids. And today, we're going to talk about what to do with it. How do we begin to set boundaries for our teenager who's had unlimited access online to social media? I'm Tiffany Dogie.
And I'm Eric Chafin.
And we're back with Dr. Julie Radlauer, an expert in mental health, and Melia Arnett Archie, a parent who has a 19-year-old and a 5-year-old, two very different screen time approaches. Thank you guys for being with us again.
I think there's a book coming out soon, right? You're going to help everybody.
You should. You should. Dr. Julie, the parents who tuned in last time have taken the very first step. They've downloaded our free download. They've done their assessment at home. And now they have a very clear picture of their teen's social media habits. So now comes the big question. What do realistic, healthy screen time limits look like in your home for your teenager?
Well, I love your downloadable activities. I think doing an assessment is really, really the first step, is getting a sense of how much time our teens are spending on social media, but then also, or they're just not even social media screen time, but then really dissecting it. You know, how much time are you spending on YouTube? How much time are you spending on
TikTok
or LinkedIn? How much time are you spending?
Like they're on LinkedIn.
I mean, okay, maybe.
I'm doing my husband's assessment. How much time are you spending on LinkedIn?
Okay, maybe not LinkedIn. Maybe Instagram or Snapchat. Snapchat's a big one. Yeah, so really getting a sense of how much time they're spending on each thing, and then talking to them honestly about, is that how you want to be spending your time? Are there other ways? What are you doing when you're on those? What are you paying attention to? What are you looking at? Oh, I'm really watching art videos. Okay, so do you want to take an art class? Like trying to translate what it is that they're seeing and watching and doing into something that they can do in real time. But it starts with a conversation. So having the information from the assessment's first step, second step, let's begin to have this conversation. Right. Okay. And I think especially when you're dealing with older teens, it's really important to recognize that they want agency. They want to be part of the decision-making process. Right.
We talked about that last time.
Yeah. So, there's research that demonstrates that 40% of teens, they actually just want to have a conversation about it. They don't want you to put restrictions on them. They want to, it's almost like a negotiation, right? And let's figure out what it is that you're getting from this social media or your phone, and how do we try to negotiate that into terms that make sense for you, for us as a family, for our goals. And it's individual. So some teens are going to need to spend more time on social media than others.
Right.
Right. If you keep your children really active and they're going to lots of after-school activities and they're engaged in extracurricular, they don't need as much time on social media. Then it might be talking about what time of day. Whereas somebody who's a little more introverted and doesn't have as many interests, we want to help them develop their interests, but social media can't be the only interest.
That was hard for me. That was hard for us when Jordan was growing up. I am not a you get agency kind of personality. Mark was the talker. He was the nurturer. He was the, let's have a conversation about this, like the negotiator. And I was like, because I said so. Like, there is no, we're going to have a conversation about this. Right. You're going to get 1 hour and that's it. Like it was just.
Here's your schedule and move on.
Is that what it's like? Well, you don't have to disclose.
No. Absolutely. We're very open. I'm probably very similar to Mark in terms of having conversations with the kids and having some dialogue. Where you're at with this and that, learning a little bit more where they're at that time, which sometimes isn't as easy for anybody, because obviously sometimes you have to just put something down and say, hey, this is how it's going to be no matter what. We just need to move through this. But no, having 3 kids in 3 different areas, 20,
because you've got
16, and 14. Yeah. I mean, that whole dynamic, obviously the 20-year-old's a little bit different, but there was a period of time, and when he was 19 and all the things that are happening, and, he had a dip. He had a very big dip, and I saw it, and we had to jump in and just be with him. And, it's one of those things that you just see it, and you have to be part of whatever he's going through that journey. And we got through it. And he's now, like anything, you ride these waves and he's backward and he's right where he needs to be. But yeah,
It's interesting because we don't think about it, but teenagers, what they really want is your time.
Yeah.
Yes.
They'll tell you no, that they don't, but they want you to put your phone down and spend time with them.
Being present.
And being present. And so having that conversation about, you know what, I think I'm spending too much time on social media too. Can we hold each other accountable? Let's do this together. But that means I need to change my habits.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to a friend of mine and she's got one in elementary and one in middle, and her elementary is lying, cheating, sneaking, all of the things. They like lock things up and he sneaks in and gets it because he's so addicted to it. And I just spent some time with her and she was walking around the whole weekend on her phone.
Oh.
And I was like, oh gosh, well, that's it. Like, put
Yeah.
your phone down
Yeah.
and be present, because then he will be too.
And even, I think for parents, if your thing isn't necessarily social media or the phone, for me, it was work.
Mm-hmm.
I was addicted to work.
Right.
I was addicted to corporate travel. I was on the road,
Checking things off the list.
65% achieving in the name of my family, but all my daughter needed was me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think social media became her outlet because I wasn't there. And so I think you're exactly right. It's whatever it is that might be distracting you from being present and making yourself available for these conversations with your children. I think that's the first step, is to do a self-check as the parent.
Yeah.
Because if they are finding comfort and relationships online, it could be an indication that something is lacking at home. And I was a lot like you, Tiffany. The whole agency thing, that's not how I was raised. It's like our way because we're the parents and that's it.
Yeah.
But what we learned through therapy, and I would say this was a big piece. If you don't have the language or the understanding of what to do when you're seeing these things, go talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought we were going to therapy for her. It was for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what she said, is that there is a way for these two things to coexist and for you to understand what's important to her, but to allow her to self-regulate a little bit. And so it's really understanding, what do you get out of social media? What do you want to get out of social media? How do these relationships matter to you? And what seems reasonable for you?
Right.
So how much time do you think you can live without it?
Right.
And she actually then set out her own schedule. So she could abide by it. It was easier for her because it was her
her schedule.
coming to terms with, all right, you're right. And I think off camera, we were talking about The Social Dilemma, which is a documentary on Netflix from a few years back. And we sat down at the therapist's suggestion and we watched it together. And she was able to see herself through the stories that were told in that documentary. And after that, we had a conversation about, okay, so what are you thinking?
Right.
And she's like, yeah, Mom,
It's too much.
it's too much. And this is how it makes me feel. And, seeing it, somebody else say it helps me understand myself a little bit better.
Thank you for sharing that, because one of the things that we do at the agency is family strengthening services. We actually offer in-home free counseling to families who are struggling. So therapist comes to you, does family therapy. If your child's struggling and you need support for a temporary period of time, because usually it's a couple of months and you just have to work out a strategy to move forward. But the number of parents who will call us and say, my kid needs therapy. And so we start the intake program and they're, oh, no, not me. This is about them. You need to fix them.
Right.
We're fine.
Right.
They're the ones with the problem, but you're going to therapy for us.
Yeah, it's interesting you saying that. It's boundaries, setting boundaries. And we have a hard enough time setting boundaries for ourselves,
Right.
right? And then staying aligned to my goals and whatever that's personal, professional. Melia, how did you set boundaries with your kids? Obviously being 5 years old, and how did that work for you?
So first, going back to what I said about sort of the self-assessment that my husband and I had to go through about our parenting style and about just the constitution of our family and who we were, who we wanted to be, and how we're going to get there.
Constitution of
Right.
our
What are the
family.
guiding principles that, we have as a family? And so after COVID, I decided that it was more important for me to be more present. We had, at that time, a few years left before the teenager became an adult. And so I left the corporate world. That was one of the reasons that I left, was because we needed a dramatic change. And so I made that decision for the betterment of my children. But then, as we're sort of setting the boundaries, it was really with understanding what makes us a healthy unit and how can we support, because at that point, my daughter had already experienced a lot of fallout from the social media from just a mental health perspective. And so it was really about getting her healthy. And I'm proud to report that it worked. It's a work in progress.
Right.
But from a social media perspective, she is completely regulated these days, right? In that, she's, I think, spending a healthy amount of time. She has enough followers to really be an influencer, and she's just not interested in it. So for anyone who's like going through it and you're in the thick of it and you're like, I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, I think when you take those steps and make those decisions to pause, have the conversations, get the help that you need, organize and reprioritize the family structure if, to the extent that you need to, you will start to see some changes, right? With the child becoming more aware of, this is not where I want to be spending my time. This is not what I want out of life. And, that's rewarding. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff to work on.
Yeah.
But in that respect, that's
I'm curious, what are some non-negotiables for you with your, you've done 19, you had fallout from that, so now you're doing 5-year-old. What are some non-negotiables that you have in place?
First of all, I didn't realize with a 19-year-old at the time that there are technical things that you can toggle on in these different apps that just protect them. For example, with the 5-year-old, if you're going to be on YouTube on your screen time, it's the kids' YouTube that, we've completely restricted. Even then you have to watch because some things can get through. So she has to be in our presence.
Oh, okay.
So we can hear.
Okay.
And so sometimes even, she's on her screen time, she's on kids' YouTube, and I'll hear, okay, no, not that video. And so it's really knowing, which, we didn't do a good job of with the 19-year-old, is we thought we knew and we thought we were monitoring it. But, we were really, making sure that, a 5-year-old is, of course, a lot different because there's so much that can go wrong there. But just really being engaged and involved and knowing what they're watching and not trusting that even the settings are going to be enough to protect your children from harmful material and content.
Did you invest in any of those subscriptions? I know we're not going to talk about what the names are, but any of those subscriptions that are like watchdog type subscriptions where you really monitor activity?
So we haven't yet, but I can't say that as, we really, because it's really becoming a thing. Like she's really just now at 5 starting to even understand, the internet and YouTube. But I definitely think it's something that we will consider based, on our first experience for sure.
I'm curious about that. Like, what do you think about those subscriptions? Because those are hardcore. Like you can actually say, if my child, like you're everything on their phone, it's like a stalker. You can say, if my child says this word, text me. If my child reaches out to this person, text me.
Well, I got to tell you, we actually had an app on, won't say the child will go nameless, but we had an app early on, and there were certain things that are on there. We actually found bullying. So the bullying aspect of it was very, very helpful.
Oh, wow.
Because another parent had said something about another child, about our child, and said something about X, Y, and Z, and it really wasn't true.
And so then you could deal with it.
But if we didn't have that, it wasn't litigious, but it was we actually had enough data to say, because what had happened was that they pegged her and it became a bullying issue, but it really wasn't her. So then she came to us and confident. Yeah, we basically were able to have a conversation and say, hey,
it took the he said, she said out of it.
Really wasn't this. And that was very helpful from that aspect.
I think if you're going to have apps like that, your children need to know you have them.
Correct.
I think that's it. So it's one thing if I'm going to sneak behind and stalk you.
We're back to agency.
Right,
You and the agency.
It's a conversation.
Okay.
This is the expectation. You will have this phone, but we are also going to be monitoring, and this is how we're monitoring.
If you want having a phone is a privilege.
Exactly.
Is having that was not the way it was. So I feel like such a hypocrite, but at the same time, we didn't know what we didn't know at the time. 15 years ago was very different than it is today.
100%.
But I do really view it as a phone is a privilege, and you have to demonstrate the responsibility to handle the phone or to handle the.
Well, I'd say access to the internet. I mean, because they can have phones and not
have access to the internet,
right? And so I think it's the social part of it that's the privilege, right?
I think it's all a privilege, but I also think they need to understand the responsibility of the social part of it. And they don't because they're young people.
So in it.
And they do not understand.
It's just normal.
No, that's, if you look at developmental milestones, that responsibility is not one of the things that we think of when we think of young teens. It's just those things.
But there are no parents that I know who are looking at developmental milestones. Like there are no
but
normal
then that's part of the
parents.
conversation to say with what are you?
So what
expecting?
is that? Look, what is a realistic expectation developmentally for our teenagers? Like what?
Well, I mean, so here's the part of the science. You know, like the entire country of Australia has decided that under the age of 16, you will not have cell phones. Like,
Oh my goodness, I did not know that.
not cell phones, social media.
Okay,
Access
so-
social
okay.
media, right? So that and is that enforceable? They have,
But they've given the parents the tools
they
they
have-
need to say you're under
exactly.
16.
You have to upload your driver's license.
Yes.
Same with
Oh,
California.
that's
It's like a red light.
Same with
Yeah.
California. We're starting to see those laws here in the
Yes,
U.S.
Upload your driver's license is genius.
But again, that's only as good as the parent not handing over.
Their driver's license. Right. So parents can be part of the problem.
Yeah.
Parents are most often part of the problem. Oh, that wasn't
Because we don't like our kids. We don't want our kids to be mad at us.
We want our. Your kid is not your friend.
I know, but that was my issue. I felt guilty because, again, of the decisions I'd made, and I wasn't there. And so it was really like, okay, how much will I push? And
Yeah, I don't want her not to like me.
exactly.
I don't want her to
That's
be
the real
mad at
thing.
me.
Well, also it's more than that. It is that and more. Like for example, one of my kids, when he started high school, he had a phone, but he did not have social media
Mhm.
because I'm me, right? So he was like, oh, "Stop being you, and let me have social media." But I said, "No social media." First day of high school, he's sitting at the lunch table with 5 other boys, and they're all on their phones and they're all on Snapchat.
Mhm.
And they're having a conversation with each other,
Oh.
snapping each other, and he's sitting
left
there
out.
like, I don't have Snapchat.
You know,
And he came home and he said, "Mom, I need Snapchat." And I was just like, "No, we've already discussed this." And the answer is no. And he's like, "Well, then I will have no friends."
so back in the day,
Mm.
you guys remember dating right back in the day?
Vaguely.
Yeah,
Move
yeah,
on.
you remember that. Like you
It's
would
been a
go
minute.
and you would
It's been
have
a minute.
you would have human interaction. You would go up and talk to people and like, hey, or whatever. You have this small talk, right? So the first time my son, and God, I hope he's not listening to this. The first time,
not gonna be watching this.
first time my son,
No fear.
he saw interest in this girl in high school. And I'm like, I'm all interested. Oh, that's cool, man. That's really neat. And I said, well, how did you connect? Tell me the story. And he goes, I saw her and I found her on Snapchat and I snapped her. I go, you what? I snapped her. I'm like,
Huh?
oh, what is that? And he goes, no, that's what you do now, Dad. This is he's going back.
That
He's going
is what you do now.
3 years. You snap somebody. I go, you snap, send, hey, how you doing? And then you follow each other, and this whole digital
And then you
process,
send memes to each other.
Right.
Yeah, all this
So you-
stuff.
Right.
And then it-
That's how you make
into it.
girlfriends too.
Literally, I'm sure you know more about this, Julie, than anybody. But it like literally goes from digital and takes it like 4 days become actually face to face. And I'm like, it's so hot.
No,
But
it's
the
not.
reality.
It's how grown women make friends today. Like for real.
I'm not a grown
That's
woman,
what I
so I
do.
have no idea,
Step
so.
1 is I send you a meme. I'll send you
Is
stuff
that
that
really?
Do you
What?
respond?
Process.
Do you
Oh.
respond to it?
So if you like it, if it
No,
then-
you got to
then
have a
it's
conversation back and forth. Ha ha ha, that's so funny. And then she sends you one, and then you send like that's
And now you're in a relationship.
And
now
yeah,
you're
right.
in a
Oh, is that a
Instagram.
thing?
Yeah.
Soon you're besties.
Sorry, it's
Oh,
it's.
that's a
I don't
blog.
have time
Is that a next blog?
to have coffee with
That's
you.
a next blog?
Shut
I
up.
don't-
I'm trying to-
Are you allowed to say shut up on?
You are, but I think what we're hitting
Counsel.
on is,
we do it.
some of it is it's just the way the world is working now.
It is.
Yeah.
It's
For,
completely
for
different.
us, for our children,
Completely
and we
different.
just have to figure out how to exist in this new
world.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
I sound very old. And,
So how
Little
do
bit.
we set common boundaries? Common sense boundaries without dealing with a meltdown.
I mean,
Is
the
that even a
meltdown's
realistic
going to happen
expectation?
Okay, thank
because
you.
we're dealing with addictive personalities, right? So if you're dealing with somebody who's addicted to something and you say, well, I'm going to take away the thing that you're addicted to, the expectation is there's going to be pushback. That you should expect that,
Okay.
right? So
So pushback
No.
is going to happen.
pushback is going to happen
Okay.
because think about it. If you're doing something you like and somebody tells you to stop doing it, you're going to do that. Now we can talk about what's an appropriate way to express yourself. Remember, we're dealing with teens, right? So take your emotions out of it, walk into it that it's going to be difficult. That's the first thing. So we can't control them. We can control ourselves.
That's so good.
So I'm not going to level up when you level up.
Okay.
I'm going to expect you're leveling up.
Okay.
You should be, because I'm taking away something.
Not going to let it get to me.
Yes, I'm going to walk in there knowing
That's the hard part.
That is the hard part, right? But that's it.
It is.
Because it's just going to keep going up. And we knew they were going to act this way. Why are we surprised?
Okay.
Right. So I'm
setting
going to
your
walk.
own.
Yes. I'm going to walk in there going, this is really, really hard.
This is going to suck.
This is
Yes.
going to suck. We're going to do this together.
Okay.
I got you on this.
We're going to have an uncomfortable
We're going to have
conversation.
this conversation. You're going to sit with it for a little bit. Go hit a pillow. Do what you got to do. We'll come back, right? And this is going to be a conversation back and forth, a negotiation. But we needed, like I mentioned, you have your assessment tool for your download. We need that information. That's data. That's
You're
going
going
to
start with the assessment.
Start with the assessment.
Then have the
Yep,
conversation.
I'll do it too. You do the assessment. I'll do the assessment. Let's compare. Oh gosh, we're in this together.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have
now-
the assessment, and we also, for this particular episode, came up with some common sense agreements. I call them agreements. I don't call them rules. Look at how I'm growing.
Look at you.
Look at how I'm growing with my authoritative self. Common sense agreements, because this is not a one size fits all thing. What works for you is not going to work for you. So some common sense agreements as a guide for the parents who are listening. So you can get that. Go to the episode notes and just click the thing. It'll go. It's free. But you've seen that list of not rules, common sense agreements. Which one stood out to you? Like, what did you think? Oh, this is a game changer.
You know what? I like a combination of a lot of them. Okay. I know you want me to just pick one.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
But I really like there was a lot of really good information there. So I really do encourage everybody to go and check them out. It starts with the conversation.
Okay.
It just has to start with the conversation. And it also starts with vulnerability. It's like, I'm going to recognize that this is something that I need to do. It's about negotiation and setting some important limits.
Mm-hmm.
And the limits can be things like an hour before bed, it's going to be on the counter, right? Not in the bedroom, on the counter. Mm-hmm. And the kids will go, but that's my alarm. I'll go buy you an old-fashioned alarm.
Yeah, that's five times.
Right? Like, let's get it out of the bedrooms.
Yes.
Right? So, on the kitchen counter.
Yeah, they cannot be on their phone at 3 a.m. That has to stop. That has to stop.
Right.
That's not good for them.
It's reality.
Right. It's reality. And some of these apps, it's like they almost get punished if they don't respond in a certain amount of time. So that they're staying up all night so that they can, continue their streak or whatever. It's just a whole thing. So that's part of the conversation. What are the apps that we're going to get rid of? What are the apps you're going to stay on? Right? Because some apps are just too much.
Yes.
You can also do things like put grayscale on their phone, because part of what attracts us to the phone are all the lights and the different colors. Mm-hmm. So make your phone grayscale. It just mutes the attractiveness.
So the blue.
Yeah.
Bring the blue down.
Yeah. Just mutes the attractiveness of the phone. I mean, there are so many tips that you can use that you need to think about what's going on with this particular child and what are the things that I can do to mitigate the harm of,
But what I'm hearing you say, Dr. Julie, and what has been my experience is it just requires engagement. And for us as parents, I think to wake up to it and recognize that we have to be active participants, and not only recognizing that our children might be exhibiting some harmful relationship with social media, but then helping to usher in the solution and to your point, partner with them on the outcome. And that was my issue is we saw it. We thought we were doing things, but when we really dug into it, we realized that we had just kind of been disengaged from sort of the depth and severity of the impact of social media.
Well, it's the babysitter,
yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. It's the television. It's like, okay, I can do what I need to do now because she's busy or he's busy, right? But the goal has to be having a balanced relationship with technology, which comes from understanding what technology is doing to us, and then figuring out how are we going to work on this together to create that balance.
It's all about balance.
It's all about balance. It's always about balance.
So, are you guys up for a little role play?
Oh,
because we could talk about it's going to be uncomfortable. First of all, the whole conversation thing is going to be out of the box for a lot of parents who are like me. Like I'm not
right.
Why am I having a conversation with my child?
Right.
My child is not my friend. My job is to raise a contributing member of society. I do not care if you like me until you are paying your own bills, and then we can be friends when you've reached a developmental stage that is not today. So for me,
I don't care if you like me. And I'm not sure we're going to have a conversation. So I struggled with the autonomy and the agency and all of that was really, really difficult for me because I'm a provider like you. I'm providing for you, and that's how I'm loving you, by the way that I provide for you. And so the presence, provision versus presence was really, really hard for me while we were parenting when he was young. So people are going to hear conversation and a large part of our audience is going to go, no, I don't want to have a conversation. So let's do a role play. Melia, you are the teenager who was just told that, and you're the parent, that you cannot have your phone in your bedroom when it's time for bed. Like, we're going to take your phone, we're going to put it away where you can't sneak and get it. And she's just told you that you cannot have your phone at night. How are you going to react?
I mean, I use this for my alarm. Why? I don't understand why I can't have it.
My house, my rules.
I love that answer. Was that really your answer? Oh, you're just teasing me.
That was definitely not Julie.
Oh, I did it right. Okay, no, do it right. Do it right. I was so excited for like 2 seconds.
I know you are.
Did you see the joy in my face?
I know, you're like,
yes, amen, high five. Yay. Okay, no, that was wrong. Do it again.
I need my phone. I need it for the alarm. I'm not going to be on it.
Okay, I understand. So you really like being on your phone at night. I get it. So what we're going to do is everybody, me too, and Dad and your brothers, we're all going to put our phones here starting at 9:00. Is that a good time for you?
No.
Okay.
9
So
o'clock.
what time do you think would be a better time?
I mean, I'm up until midnight. Like, I think I should at least be able to have my phone while I'm awake.
Okay. So you're up until midnight on a school night, which means you wake up at 6 a.m. So that's only 6 hours of sleep. So we want to have like 8 hours of sleep. How about we kind of go to 7 hours of sleep? Does that sound okay? So you're not getting as much, but you're getting more. Okay. So then let's say 11 would be when you would try to go to sleep. And we want an hour before you go to sleep without the phone. So is 10 o'clock? So I had said 9 first, but let's say 10. Is 10 o'clock a good time to put your phone on the counter? Everybody else is going to do the same thing.
But what if there's an emergency?
There'll be an emergency. We're right here.
All right, that's doable. I see it. I see you're negotiating. I see this. I see you living it out. If parents take away just one thing, because we've talked about a lot of things today, and I think I know what you're going to say. I think I know what your one thing is. I think I'm going to put money on it. So
The pressure.
Okay. If parents take away one thing from what we've talked about, what is the most important step that they can take away right now to start shifting screen habits in their teenager?
Well,
I know what you're going to say.
it's not one thing. I know there's too many.
No, that's not what
I think it starts off with doing the assessment.
Okay.
And you have to start with the assessment, really, because otherwise we don't know what we're talking about.
Right.
So you do have to start there, and then it's an open conversation.
Okay. How about you, Melia? What do you think? What's the one thing?
The conversation.
What was your one thing?
I thought you were going to say it starts with you. It starts with you and
Yeah.
understanding your. I knew that. I thought
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point.
yes.
Because like I said earlier, unless we as parents understand our drivers and how we are impacting the relationship with the child and their relationship with social media, then you don't get to the assessment because you don't feel like there's a need to. You don't
understand. There's a problem.
You don't know that there's a problem. So you are right. It is that self-assessment.
But I think also, one of the things that I do when I do workshops is everybody pulls out their phone and we do mathematical equations to figure out how much time we spend on screen time and social media. And then once we have that information, we can then do it with our children. But you know what I find, because I do workshops with a lot of adults, providers, the majority of time, they spend more time on social media than their kids.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sure I do.
Really?
I work on social media, but
Yeah.
Right.
but yeah. So let me say this. This is a very sophisticated conversation for most parents.
Mm-hmm.
We are 4 professionals. You're a doctor. You specialize in this area. Parent too, but we're bringing, I think, our professional selves into this conversation as well as ourselves as parents. But, there are going to be some parents that just don't have line of sight to this level of revelation or information. And so I think for those parents, it's probably going to feel more emotional than intellectual in terms of what they're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, really speaking to what does it feel like in your home? Do you feel disconnected from your child? Does your child seem sadder or more excitable?
Yeah, I'm worried about you.
Lately?
I care about you. I love you. I want the best for you.
Right. And so I think that, talking about it in those terms probably will be more relevant to most parents who are starting to, maybe feel something's off.
Almost like at the end of the day, setting these limits, obviously it's going to be very healthy at the end of the day because, I mean, like you just mentioned, understanding those limits where you're at right now, then where do you need to be, and being more present, obviously, is going to be monumental.
So if today's conversation resonated with you and you want more, do not forget to subscribe to our newsletter because we are sending out digital detox resources all month long. And if you know a parent who's barely holding it together, send them this episode. We're all in this together, kind of figuring it out. So that's why we're here.
Thanks for joining us. This is Now Parenting Teens Today. We'll see you next time.
Bye.